Good evening and welcome. This is a brand new edition of Prime Time News on TV1. Today is the 4th of January 2021. For the News First team, I'm Zama Ratnayaka. Here are our top stories for tonight.
Travel details of Ukrainian tourists were not disclosed as agreed. Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority seeks intervention of the subject minister. Indian Minister of External Affairs to arrive in Sri Lanka tomorrow. Investigate the corruption in importing sugar to Sri Lanka that caused losses of 10 billion rupees to the government. JVP complains to the CID. Drugs worth 1.3 billion rupees found on a multi-day fishing trawler off the coast of Negombo. Environment Minister calls for a report on felling of trees at the Rajapila Park in Kurunegala.
On to those stories in detail. Prime Minister Mahindraj Paksha attended a religious event held at the Katalawala Samadhi Buddhist Center in Ratmalana earlier today.
The Prime Minister unveiled the golden fence at the Samadhi Buddhist Center today. The golden fence was constructed under the direction of the chief incumbent of the Buddhist Center, Venerable Mapalagama Buddhasiri Thera. The Department of Civil Defense provided the workforce for the project.
On to another headline-making story. In a letter to the Minister of Tourism, the chairperson of the Tourism Development Authority, Kimali Fernando, has requested the Minister, Prasanna Ranatunga, to take immediate action regarding the failure of relevant parties to inform of the travel arrangements of the Ukrainian tour group.
The letter highlights that as per an agreement reached at the meeting of the COVID-19 task force, travel details of the Ukrainian tourist should have been disclosed to the Tourism Development Authority in advance. However, the chairman of the SLTTA, Kimali Fernando, writing to the subject minister Prasanna Ranatunga, pointed out that details of the tours of the Ukrainian tourists were not provided to the authority. The letter adds that the Director General of the SLTDA tried to obtain the necessary information from the travel agents to no avail. The minister was informed that the SLTDA was only made aware of the tours through media reports. Meanwhile, the scheduled visits of the Ukrainian tourists to Polonnaruwa and Sigiriya have been cancelled. The Central Cultural Fund said that the Ministry of Tourism had cancelled the tours to Polonnaruwa and Sigiriya due to allegations that health guidelines were not followed during their tour of Yala. The Ukrainian tourists were scheduled to travel to Polonnaruwa and Sigiriya during the course of today and tomorrow, and these sites were due to be closed down for local tourists during this time period. The safari drivers who transported the Ukrainian tourists across Yala yesterday were placed under quarantine for 14 days. The safari drivers voiced their strong objection against being placed under quarantine in such a manner. A media briefing was convened at the Tissa Maharamaya Pradeshya Sabha to explain facts pertaining to the incident.
This plan was drawn up to allocate a hotel for those jeep drivers for a period of 28 days and to allow them to engage in safaris at the Yala National Park with tourists every 2 days. They were constantly calling us and requesting for hires. Yes, there was a slight miscommunication with the first batch. Now everyone has been informed.
නමුත් දැන් සියලු දෙනා දැනුවත් ඉතින් අපිට එහෙම ජීප්‍රත් සංගම් ගේන්න නෑ අපි චෝදනා කරන්නේ ගියපු කට්ටිය නෙමෙයි දැන් ඔය පිටින් ඉන්න කට්ටියක් ඒගොල්ලෝ ගෙන්නනවා සංචාරක කටයුතු නියැලෙච්ච කට්ටිය නෙමෙයි මේක.
These were the views expressed by the secretary of the Drivers Association that had been quarantined. He expressed these thoughts on social media last afternoon.
We got caught up in a trap set by the government. This is clearly a tourism mafia. It is a mafia for the big players to earn. They are doing this knowing that they are COVID positive. Today they are in Bentota and will destroy that village as well. While the tourists are free to travel around the country, the drivers who were with them for 3 hours have been put in a cell. We don't have food to eat. We don't want these foreigners ruining our country. We will engage in some sort of labor, but we do not want foreigners. A hotel in Tissamaharama has been set up for them and they will be quarantined. Not just that, if the next team will be going, only these drivers can accompany them. Then they will once again have to quarantine for a period of 14 days and will have to stay at a hotel we allocate. It would be best if their safety is ensured before this is carried forward. A slight mishap has occurred, but it was rectified last night.
ඒතර එක ගුවන් යානය එනකොට අනිත් සියලු දෙනා අතර පළමු පෙළ ආශ්‍රිතව බවට පත් වෙනවා. ඒතකොට ඒ මාස්ක් එක නොදා ඒගොල්ලෝ එකට හිටියා. එහෙම අවස්ථා ගානක් මමත් දැක්කේ.
I saw it myself on social media. I am on the stance that it is wrong. If I am not mistaken, there were 38 flights set to arrive. However, it was reduced to 12 and all those who arrive are Ukrainian tourists. Udayanga Veeratunga bringing down these tourists through his agency is beneficial for our country and a good first step in opening the country. I believe we will receive an updated set of guidelines. According to those guidelines, once a tourist arrives in the country and does not test positive for the virus, he or she can enter the travel bubble and visit destinations that are included in the said bubble.
Amidst the controversy, 7 more Ukrainian tourists arrived in the island this evening on an aircraft operated by SkyUp Airlines. The aircraft landed at the Mattala International Airport at 2:15 p.m. 21 tourists who arrived in the country on the 28th of December returned to Ukraine on the same flight. 18 tourists have arrived. For how long are their visas valid? What are the visas issued to them? In the future, we will reveal information on why these 18 women have been brought down and for how long they will be kept in the country. It is the Honorable President's brother-in-law, Udayanga Veeratunga, who brings these groups of Ukrainian people down to the country. We saw how he gave leadership to these Ukrainian people and stayed behind them, facilitating their stay and providing guidance. When we investigated this, we found out that in the Board of Tourism, his address is registered as Udayanga Veeratunga, Temple Trees, Colombo 3. That's how the President and the Prime Minister have given their blessing to their brother-in-law. We would like to question them. Don't the quarantine regulations in this country apply to Udayanga Veeratunga?
අගමැතිතුමාගේ ආශිර්වාදයේ මස්සිනාට දීලා දෙන ඉතින් උදයංග වීරතුංග මහත්තයාට මේ රටේ නිරෝධායන නීති අදාළ වෙන්නේ නැද්ද කියලා අපි අහනවා.
If there is anyone who is a risk to the society in spreading the virus, that person must be sent for quarantine, and that is the law of the country. Therefore, there is no argument. Everyone, whether it's Udayanga Veeratunga or anyone else, must follow the country's quarantine law.
Most parties dealing with the government have not just had red notices issued against them, but they also have 700 to 800 criminal allegations for serious arms dealing cases. This is one method of money laundering. We ask, now after these Ukrainians are done with their tours, the safari jeep drivers and the guides are asked to quarantine. There is a great racket behind bringing these Ukrainians to the country. While these people under red notices are dancing in broad daylight, the government sits back and watches. This racket is being carried out with the combined support of everyone in the government.
As a government, we have to see that if all revenue to the country is lost, if the country does not receive an income, the value of the rupee will further depreciate, pushing the people into poverty. We import most of the essential items to the country, material needed for local production and even oil. When the cost of imports further increase, the cost of living for each person will exponentially increase. To stop this phenomenon, we have to ensure that we receive foreign revenue. If not, the country cannot last. We can't print dollars. If we lose foreign revenue, the economy will come to a halt. Therefore, we need to think about this deeply. We can't be hostile about
When you think about Ukraine, everyone thinks it's a rich country. But their GDP per capita is lower than ours. Fixing our economy by bringing tourists from their country is actually a joke. Furthermore, we still don't have an answer whether they are infected with the new strain of the COVID-19 virus.
මේ රටෙන් සංචාරකයෝ ගෙනල්ලා ලංකාවේ සංචාරක ව්‍යාපාරය පණ ගන්නන්න හදනවා කියන්නේ ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම මහා විහිළුවක්.
This is a pilot project. It was not completely opened. We brought them in small groups and educated them on health guidelines. Thereafter, we observed them and did post-observation analysis to identify the faults. After identifying the issues and how they occurred, we will methodically open this for foreigners. We will not completely open it straight away. Who did not adhere to guidelines? Who is responsible for that? These are things that certainly need to be looked into, especially when large groups of tourists are taken to hotels. The Health Ministry has advised to keep the hotel staff within the hotel for 14 days.
A group of residents of the National Housing Scheme in Maligawatha staged a protest today, stating that even though the isolation status of their area was lifted after 3 long months, they have not been allowed to leave the housing complex.
The government announced today that the isolation status of the National Housing Scheme in Maligawatha has been lifted starting from 5 a.m. this morning. In line with this announcement, the residents of the housing scheme attempted to leave the premises. However, they were not allowed to do so. Thereafter, the Assistant Superintendent of Police in charge of the Central Colombo area, Jayeshankar, came to the location. This will change in the coming 2 to 3 days. All of you can travel within the limits imposed in your area, but you cannot travel beyond the barricades. This is the situation that erupted after ASP Jayeshankar got off the phone with the medical officer of health in charge of the Colombo district and told the residents that PCR tests will be carried out in the area tomorrow. He said that rapid antigen tests will be conducted tomorrow morning onwards. Then he will look at the percentage of positive cases and release people. The group dispersed after Assistant Superintendent of Police in charge of the Central Colombo area, Jayeshankar, explained the procedure furthermore to them.
The Ministry of Education has decided to commence academic activities of grade 11 students from the 25th of January. Academic activities of grade 11 students at schools across the island, except for schools in areas under isolation, will begin on the said date.
Primary classes will be reopened in all schools except those in isolated police divisions in the country. Preschools will also be opened subject to the same conditions. We have developed a comprehensive program on how to reopen schools while adhering to strict health guidelines. All activities of schools will be done according to this program. Classes for grade 11 students will begin. We must prioritize this. We are working hard to start the academic activities of students in grade 11 on Monday the 25th of January, except for the schools that are in areas under isolation. We will make every effort to release the results of the GCE ordinary level examination, which is happening in March, by the end of June. We hope to release the advanced level examination results by late March or early April.
Now, earlier today, the JVP said that if the losses suffered by the government due to the corruption said to have taken place during the importation of sugar is not recovered, the government will have to obtain a loan to purchase COVID-19 vaccines.
JVP Politburo member Vasanta Samarasinghe today filed a complaint at the Criminal Investigations Department regarding the corruption in importing sugar to the country that caused massive losses to the government.
These are organized financial crimes. Until the 13th of October last year, according to a gazette that was issued in May 2020, there was a 50 rupee tax on imported sugar. On the 14th of October, this tax was brought down from 50 rupees to 25 cents. The taxes imposed on sugar, dal and a number of items were removed. Although the gazette that was issued on the 14th of October was removed, one of the main institutions of the government, which is Satose, had purchased sugar from a company, Wilma. 750 metric tons of sugar was purchased at 127 rupees per kilo. 700 metric tons were purchased at 122 rupees per kilo. This is an organized financial crime valued at 10 billion rupees. We request for an immediate investigation to be conducted into this incident.
වෙළඳ ආයතන පාවිච්චි කළ ජනතාවගේ මුදලුත් කොල්ල කනවා රාජපක්ෂ ආණ්ඩුවේ හිතවත් ව්‍යාපාරික ප්‍රජාව ජාලය එකතු වෙලා.
අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව හරි.
Either the Criminal Investigations Department or the Bribery Commission must arrest this person immediately and produce him in court. Steps must be taken to file indictments against this in the High Court. We have fulfilled our responsibility. Now we will wait until this person is taken into custody.
මේ සැබෑ වග උත්තරකරුවා අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්නේ කවදද කියලා.
Against a backdrop where allegations are being made about alleged incidents of embezzlement of public funds, we now draw your attention to some of the issues and hardships faced by those in rural Sri Lanka.
The locals of the Mahiyangane Alavala area came to the Mahiyangane Ampara Road this morning to stage a protest demanding authorities to take measures to solve the human-elephant conflict in the area. Interestingly, when the protesters were moving towards the Mahiyangane bridge, a herd of elephants was seen roaming close to the premises.
The elephants are on top of the bridge that connects Hasalaka to Mahiyangane. These elephants move into the mini reserve at night. The leaders are nicely relaxing in Colombo while the elephants are sleeping here.
Later, the group arrived opposite the Mahiyangane Divisional Secretariat. The Mahiyangane Divisional Secretary, who arrived at the scene, promised to arrange a meeting with the Minister of Wildlife, Vimalavira Dissanayake, on the day after tomorrow. The group dispersed after this. Meanwhile, a wild elephant had severely damaged a house in the Pothanegame area in Hattuava last night. At the time the wild elephants encroached to attack, it was only a pregnant mother and her 2 children were at the house. The villagers who then came to the scene have chased away the elephants and saved their lives, but their house was badly damaged.
While many farmers face difficulties due to the human-elephant conflict, farmers cultivating corn have been hit by the brunt of the Sena caterpillar menace. The national organizer of All Ceylon Farmers Federation, Namal Karunaratne, said that farmers who have been battered by the Sena caterpillar menace should be given proper compensation.
This year, farmers had to buy packets of seeds for 8,400 rupees, and these same seed packets were 5,000 rupees in 2017. On top of that, huge costs have been incurred to hire tractors and pesticides to deal with this pest. The price they get for their produce has not been increased. The farmers are requesting for 100,000 rupees to be provided per acre. If farmers are not treated fairly, we will not stop our struggle. We would like to notify the government that we will not stop our struggle.
Indian Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jayeshankar will be arriving in Sri Lanka tomorrow for a 2-day state visit.
The Foreign Ministry said the Indian Foreign Minister will engage in bilateral discussions with President Gautabiraj Paksha, Prime Minister Mahindraj Paksha and Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. This will be the first state visit by a foreign envoy to the country in 2021 and the Indian Foreign Minister's first state visit for the year 2021. The Foreign Minister said state visits of this caliber will strengthen bilateral connections that would solidify multi-purpose benefits between the two nations. In a backdrop where COVID-19 has gripped both nations, this visit will be facilitated under travel bubble concept.
Our greatest national resource is the sea that surrounds us. Over 8 times the size of our landmass. Let's proudly call it what it is. The Sea of Sri Lanka.
Do your online shopping now with Sambole.lk to get it home delivered or pick up on your way.
Sambole.lk.
Welcome back to the news. Now, what is the current status of the impending provincial council election? Two state ministers expressed their views in that regard.
I do not have a certain answer for that. Have to look into what should be done as preparations for the election. We are currently carrying out the affairs necessary for an amendment of the constitution. I personally think that it is good to determine whether we will continue the old system or form a new system with the new constitutional amendment. I see that the Mahasangha has also started talking against the provincial councils, taking the side of various parties. Therefore, we have to come to a middle ground and hold discussions. The head of state says that the government will introduce a system based on electorates and that preserves the merits of the proportional representation system. Therefore, the requirement of the country and the requirement of the voter is an MP who is responsible for his electorate and a proportional representation that stays true to every ideology. The next election that is to be held in the country should be held based on a new electoral system. That should be the expectation of everyone.
නව මැතිවරණ ක්‍රමයක් ඇතුලේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන මැතිවරණ ක්‍රමයක් විය යුතුයි.
Minister Tamal Rajapaksa made a revelation at an event held in Colombo today.
When land deeds were written, there was a land belonging to my wife in Valigama. No one knew, but all the brothers and sisters' signatures have been forged. The lands and the houses have been registered. We only got to know of this a while later. I think if this program of registering lands continues, such things will not happen. Isn't that so?
The minister expressed the following views at the launching event of the e-land registering software of the Registrar's General Department.
Under the current situation, we got to know in the past that several owners fight over the same land. Once this data system is completely functional, the chance of someone illegally acquiring someone else's land is halted through the software. The project will commence in 3 offices and will be expedited to be active in 22 offices. Additionally, before the end of the year, the President and the Minister in charge have advised us to activate this system in all 45 offices.
Anusha Palpita assumed duties as the Secretary to the Ministry of Industries earlier today.
Anusha Palpita succeeds the former Secretary to the Ministry of Industry, Chulananda Pereira, who retired. The event was attended by Minister of Trade, Bandula Gunawardena, Minister of Industries, Vimal Viravansa, and former Secretary to the President, Lalit Viratunga. Anusha Palpita has previously served as the Director General of Department of Government Information, Chairman of Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, Director General of Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation, Director General of the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission of Sri Lanka, the Chief Executive Officer of the Lotus Tower Project, and many other positions.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa began his duties for the new year earlier today. Religious observances were conducted at the office of the opposition leader in Colombo. Parliamentarians of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya were also present at the occasion. A media briefing was held thereafter. Speaking at the event, the opposition leader said that it is commendable that the government has decided to provide sanitary pads to school children free of charge.
විවිධ පරීක්ෂණ වලින් හෙළි වෙලා තිබෙනවා.
Various studies have shown that due to this health issue, 1/3 of schoolgirls within the school community do not go to school during this period. 1.3 million school working days are lost. This affects the female contribution to the working force of the country. The loss has also been calculated. It is a $20 billion loss of manufacturing capacity by the year 2025. As the government, providing such equipment should be done free of charge. We would like to tell the government that they need to find a solution to this issue. Though late, the government has today accepted what we said. For that, we are thankful.
ප්‍රමාද වෙලා හරි එදා අපි කියපු සත්‍ය රජය පිළිගන්නවා නම් අපේ ස්තුතිය සහ ප්‍රණාමය පුද කර සිටිනවා.
The Sri Lanka Navy apprehended 100 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine, also known as ice, and around 80 kilograms of hashish in the seas of Negombo during a special operation carried out earlier today. The drugs were being imported, or rather transported, on a multi-day fishing trawler. 4 suspects have been arrested in connection to this.
The East Naval Command has carried out a special raid on a multi-day fishing trawler that was travelling in the deep sea. During the raid, the Navy was able to apprehend 9 sacks carefully concealed inside the trawler. Initial investigations have revealed that the 4 suspects arrested are residents of Todo in Chilao. The value of the stock of drugs apprehended today is 1.3 billion rupees, and further investigations are underway into the incident. The stock of narcotics has been handed over to the Police Narcotics Bureau in Colombo. We have identified one of the ringleaders who organized the importation of the stock. He is a drug racketeer and is currently in prison for a drug-related offence. He is Kondaranji alias Ranjit Kumara, a resident of Kandana. He has been identified as one of the main individuals involved in bringing down this consignment of drugs. Further investigations are underway.
Construction work on the first phase of the proposed 50,000 houses for middle-income owners commenced earlier today.
As per the National Policy Framework, Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor, 50,000 houses are to be built for middle-income professionals. As the first phase of the program, 3,000 housing units will be constructed. The estimated cost for the first 3,000 houses is 40 billion rupees. Under the project, the construction work of flats in Orugadawatta commenced today. Apart from this, housing complexes are to be built in Blue Mendol, Malabe, Makumbura and Boralaskamuwa. Plans have also been made to build housing complexes in Paliagoda in the Gampaha district and in the Gatambe area in the Kandy district for middle-income earners. In order to revive the economic program, a road development program to build 100,000 roads has been initiated. A program to construct 1,000 bridges has also commenced with around 5,000 bridges already completed. In the year 2021, we must bring back normalcy to the lives of the people. We have placed foundation stones to build 3,000 new houses for middle-income earners. In the coming weeks, we are not dormant because of Corona. We invite everyone in the country to look forward to this year with a positive attitude. The housing project which commenced today is due to be completed in 1.5 years.
In some economy-related news, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka forecasts Sri Lanka's economy to contract by approximately 3.9% in 2020. The forecast was announced while unveiling the Central Bank's roadmap for monetary and financial sector policies for 2021, which took place virtually this morning.
The central bank will continue the prevailing accommodative monetary policy stance in 2021 to ensure the envisaged recovery of economic activity. Until the economy reaches its full potential, it is unlikely that there would be any notable domestic demand pressure, despite the large monetary expansion witnessed at present. The central bank will continue to remain vigilant, but is confident that inflation will remain within the targeted range of 4 to 6% over the medium term. Capitalizing on the achievement of 12 years of single-digit inflation. The central bank intends to establish a permanent single-digit interest rate structure in the economy. We will remain focused on maintaining a market interest rate at single-digit levels going forward. The central bank recognizes that certain social groups, such as fixed income earners, particularly senior citizens, depending on retirement pensions, will be adversely affected by low deposit interest rates. The sustainable solution to this problem lies in long-term income growth and institutional developments involving mutual funds, insurance and annuity schemes, pension and superannuation schemes. The central bank will continue to work with the financial sector to develop new financial products that will support such vulnerable sections of the society. The central bank expects credit to the private sector to expand by around 14% in 2021 and at least by around 12 to 12.5% annually over the medium term. The performance of the open economy policies introduced from 1977 onwards will be reviewed vigorously. The central bank's stance on allowing market forces to determine the exchange rate will remain unchanged going forward. However, any excessive volatility, market manipulations by a few for undue personal gain during difficult times at the expense of the masses will not be tolerated. The central bank would continue to intervene in the domestic foreign exchange market to reduce undue volatilities in the exchange rate.
Despite difficult conditions, the central bank continued to purchase foreign exchange from the domestic foreign exchange market to build up reserves, recording net purchases of around $300 million during 2020. Professor W.D. Lakshman said the central bank is in the process of introducing a new Financial Consumers Protection Act to cover all financial institutions, while measures will also be taken in the period ahead to set up an autonomous financial consumer protection authority covering all the stakeholders in the financial industry.
The Minister of Environment has requested the Central Environment Authority to submit a report on the destruction of trees at the Rajapihilla Park in Kurunegala. This is with regard to the uprooting of 28 large trees at the park.
Recently, many large trees in the Rajapihilla garden in Kurunegala were cut down. In the process, a pavilion that was over 100 years old was also destroyed. In the letter sent today, the Minister of Environment has inquired as to whether the Central Environmental Authority or its district officers had given permission to cut down the trees in question. The Minister further said in the letter that the COVID-19 situation in the country has led to more deforestation in the country. He added such efforts of deforestation should be investigated and that the ministry has a responsibility to deliver authentic information on these facts to the media. Meanwhile, we inquired the Mayor of Kurunegala, Tushar Sanjeeva, regarding the destruction of this historic park in the centre of Kurunegala. Although he said that he would explain the matter at a press conference, the Mayor has not made any statement in this regard even 3 days after the incident was reported. The Mayor of Kurunegala also caused controversy regarding the demolition of the building which is considered to be the historic Buwaneka King's Assembly Hall, which belongs to the historic Atugalpura era.
Before this, we saw the destruction of an archaeological building considered to be the historic Buwaneka Royal Palace. In the same way, today we see the destruction of the only natural garden we have for the Kurunegala city, which is the Rajapihilla Garden. If the law is being enacted, when we voice our concerns, when historical buildings are destroyed, it is clear that this will never happen.
Now, speculation has swirled around Chinese billionaire Jack Ma's whereabouts after reports surfaced that the high-profile businessman has not made a public appearance in more than 2 months.
The Alibaba founder also failed to appear as scheduled in the final episode of his own talent show. According to foreign media, Jack Ma was supposed to be a part of the judging, but he was replaced by an Alibaba executive. His picture was also taken off the website. An Alibaba spokesperson said Ma was unable to take part on the judging panel due to a schedule conflict. Ma's business empire and group has been under scrutiny by Beijing ever since Ma delivered a controversial speech in Shanghai on the 24th of October that criticized China's regulation system for stifling innovation and likened global banking rules to an old people's club.
England's plans for their 2-test series in Sri Lanka have been rocked by the news that Moeen Ali has tested positive for COVID-19 and must now isolate for 10 days.
Moeen Ali, who has returned to the Test squad after a year-long absence but was central to the 3-0 win in Sri Lanka in 2018, was shown to have contracted the virus during testing that took place yesterday when the squad arrived at the Hambantota airport. In a statement issued by the England and Wales Cricket Board today, 10 days away from the start of the first test in Galle, it was also confirmed that Chris Woakes has been deemed a close contact and must also isolate for a further period of time before more tests.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1. For a more comprehensive update on all these stories and much more, simply log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jayeshankar Ratnayaka, along with our sign language interpreter for tonight, Tarka Gabriel. Take care, stay safe, and good night.